How you going to transition into this
I
one?
don't, I mean, I don't really have a seamless one, but the only one I was thinking of was, um, Red Bull really bailed out the Metro Stars there, but you know who bailed out Houston again?
Nice.
This man Brian Ching.
Nice.
So if you can remember back to our last MLS history retold episode, we covered everything Houston Dynamo in the 2006 season. But if you didn't, here's a quick recap. So the Houston Dynamo were born this season after the formerly known San Jose Earthquakes were moved to Houston in a relocation of the team. Despite the move, the now Houston Dynamo were able to maintain almost all of the former San Jose players who had won the Supporter Shield the season prior. So let's jump to the game. Let's jump to game 30 during the 2006 season. And while it was mathematically impossible for the players to win back-to-back supporter shields, they were still in prime position to make the playoffs and challenge for the cup. The top four teams from each conference would make it to the playoffs, meaning that if Houston won this game, game 30, they would clinch a playoff spot in its first ever season. However, it was not going to be easy as they were matched up against that same team we were just talking about, DC United, who at the time were top of the supporter shield. The Houston squad would be filled with household MLS names such as De Rosario, Brad Davis, and of course, Brian Ching, the man we spoke about last episode who scored 4 goals in the first ever Houston Dynamo game. For DC, they'd be going up against MLS legend Jaime Moreno and soon to be announced 2006 MLS MVP Christian Gomez. While DC was firmly in the playoffs, they still had the Shield to play for, so this was not going to be an easy matchup for Houston. And the first half definitely showed that, with it ending in a defensive battle resulting in a 0-0 scoreline. A draw was not going to do it. They needed to win to clinch their playoff spot. So they needed to make something happen in the second half. The first 40 minutes of the second half go by, and nothing has changed. It's still stalemate at 0-0. While Houston was still likely to make the playoffs, even with a loss in this game, what better chance to clinch your first ever playoff berth in front of your home crowd? And there is only one Houston man who can make that happen for them. And if you listen to last history's episode, you know who I'm talking about. In the 86th minute, Brad Davis hits a cross into the box from the left flank, which is headed high and straight up into the air by substitute Paul Dalglish. The floating ball near the edge of the box finds a completely wide open Brian Ching, who is slightly ahead of the floating ball. If he takes it down, there are 4 DC players who could swarm him immediately and kill the space he's found. So there's only one option for him to do at this point. Ching lines it up and bikes it past the diving Troy Perkins into the bottom left corner to win the game for Houston and clinch the playoffs for them. The goal sent the announcers and the Houston crowd into a frenzy, while DC players and coaches could do nothing but stand there in shock. Now, I won't go into the details of Houston's playoff results because that will be for another history episode, maybe even the next episode. Wink. So make sure to listen in and find out how this crazy first Houston Dynamo season ends. Ching's goal would end up taking home MLS's goal of the year, but more importantly, it would create yet another fantastic memory for the new MLS fans in Houston.
That man is something out of a video game, from what
I
it
can't
sounds
believe
like.
I can't believe how quickly he made himself immortalized in Houston Dynamo history. Like this, he's got to just be a fan favorite forever, just from one season.
He is the first person I remember ever having a testimonial in MLS.
Mm. When I was researching this, I there were some articles talking about some of the moments, like his top 10 moments leading up to his testimonial game for Houston. And it popped up a lot because they were talking about this bicycle kick, but it was crazy. Like they had a great list of top 10 moments from him just as a Houston player. And then to the point that you just made, a testimonial game as well.
I think it does go back though to what happens if they don't move San Jose with this guy around. because I mean, even before he got to Houston and did what he did, he had 25 goals and 56 appearances for San Jose over 2 seasons, 3 seasons. Like the dude was scoring at San Jose. He played at Seattle before that. This is before they were in MLS. 16 goals in 25 games. He was with LA. He had a goal in 8 games. Like the dude could play and people knew it. But I think he stands out most because of how quickly he got Houston into relevancy, right?
Yeah, and you know what's crazy either, and maybe it's just because we're spoiled by modern day MLS. He never really had a season where he just like blew up the scoring numbers. Like his most goals scored in a season was 13, and it wasn't even the season that we're talking about.
Right.
Which it I mean, he doesn't have a ton of minutes, so he's pretty like efficient when he's out there. And I think again, it's modern day MLS spoiling us, where we see guys like Josef and Vela and Zlatan scoring 30 plus goals, and I'm sure that's going to be messy next year as well. So seeing 13 means it just feels like, wow, only 13 goals. But I think back in, you know, mid 2000s MLS, hitting double digit goals was, and doing it consistently was probably really strong from your striker.
Yeah. He is definitely something special, and it'll, we could do a whole, you know, Brian Ching history deep dive into just him. But we won't do that today. But we might do it at some point. That'd be a cool like spin-off of MLS history, is like history of player, where they came from, how they got to where they are. That could be fun.
It could be interesting
Yeah, we still got about 400 more stories to go, so we'll get there later. But
and counting. There's
and
new
counting,
stories
because
every day.
oh man, I can't wait for the end of the season. I'm gonna go to MLS Reddit and be like, all right, guys, so for our book, what are some cool ones from this year? And it's just gonna be whoosh.
Oh,
Um,
forget about it. League's Cup itself has like 5 stories we can go into.
oh
There's
yeah,
year one of it.
so good, so good.